What I'm about to share with you could save you thousands of dollars and a whole lot of stress. So grab a pen and paper and take some notes. My name is Olufemi Ajose, and for nearly 5 years now, I've bought and sold hundreds of parcels of land and built a multi-7-figure profit land flipping business from the product. My channel, Olufemi Ajose, is your go-to for buying and selling land and building a multi-7-figure profit business from the product. So let's jump in. Here are the 10 critical things that you need to avoid when buying land. Number one, you need to actually walk the land. Either you walk the land or you have a local land-specific broker walk the land for you, but you need to pick a broker that knows what he or she is doing. And the only way to tell this is by going on their sold comparables and actually seeing the properties that they've sold. You want to see that this person has sold properties very consistently. Now, I'm actually on a 6-acre parcel of land right now that I was looking at buying, and I'm probably not going to buy it now that I'm walking it, but I did see this creek here, which is why I was thinking about buying it. But I probably won't buy it. Just because it's way too slow. Just look at it. When you're thinking about buying a property, you want to know where the property starts and ends. You want to know how much road frontage the property actually has, and you want to know the boundaries of the property. You need to know all these things, and I'm going to show you how to make sure that you know that. Now, I've bought properties in 48 different states, and I've never lost money on a single land deal because I have local brokers and realtors going to the properties and walking the properties physically for me. Now, I really do enjoy land and walking these properties, so that's why I do it. But let's say that you're in Europe or Hawaii and you don't want to walk your property, you can always have a local land-specific broker do it for you. You also want to make sure that there's nothing on the property that doesn't belong to the seller. This is really important. So any, tractors or trash or RVs or anything like that, you want to make sure that all the things on there actually belong to the seller, and if they don't, you need to convey those messages to the seller, because you don't want to be liable for something like that. Number two, you don't want to overpay for property. Now, I buy land at anywhere from 35 to 50 cents on the dollar consistently. Why? Because I'm able to look at comparables on the market. So I go and look at sold comparables and see what has actually sold. You see, the problem that most people make when they choose comparables, they're choosing for sale comparables, and usually those for sale comparables have been on the market for 300 days, 400 days, 500 days. The market hasn't responded to it yet. What I look for in comps is to make sure that the market has responded and that the property actually sold quickly. So if I see that a property sold for $80,000, I'm actually going to go in and offer anywhere from $35,000 to $40,000 for that property with how we buy and sell land. You might also want to pay for an appraisal, which will be like $300 or $400, but a lot of the appraisals that I've seen have been either way above what the property was worth or way below what the property is worth. So make sure that you're choosing a reputable appraiser if you're going to go that route. If you're getting lending, they're going to require an appraisal anyways. Now, if you're getting lending, they're going to require an appraisal, and that's why I buy all my properties in cash. Number three, you always want to get a survey. I need to know the exact boundaries of my property. So get a survey. Even if the property already has a survey, if it's not in the last 10 years, I'm getting another survey on that property just to make sure that I'm buying the right property, just to make sure that it's actually what they convey it to be. I want to make sure that I'm buying right. I've seen so many people, unfortunately, just lose so much money buying land just because they didn't do the proper due diligence. It's so important to me that you do your due diligence. So get a survey on your property, understand the boundary lines. Figure out where the stakes are at. Make sure that you get a local, reputable surveyor. Now, a survey is going to run you about $600 depending on the size of the land, but you just want to make sure that you're with someone that has a lot of experience surveying properties. You don't want to be with some inexperienced guy. Now, number four, you want to check for wetlands. Now, this property actually has wetlands because of that creek, and so sometimes wetlands can actually serve as an attribute to the property as opposed to a hindrance. But you want to make sure, okay, if there are wetlands on my property, why are there wetlands on my property? Is it a marshland? Is it a swampy land? Like, what is it? So you can actually use things like ID Lands and FEMA's website to check for wetlands, and it'll tell you exactly what the wetlands are. So it'll tell you if it's a creek, it'll tell you if it's swampy, it'll tell you if it's marsh, and you always want to make sure, like I said, this is why it's so important for a person to actually walk it, because sometimes these maps are not 100% accurate. So you actually want to have someone walk the property just to make sure that everything does check out for you. Number five, you want to check for flood zones. So you can actually check flood zones by going on a FEMA floodplain map. And this is really important for properties that you're going to build on. You don't want your properties to be flooded, so you want to make sure that there's no flood risk for these properties. Now, I buy all kind of land. I've bought and sold hunting land, properties that you build on. I bought and sold farmland. Anything you can imagine, pretty much every type of land. So for hunting land, for example, FEMA floodplains and wetlands are not really things that I'm too concerned about because we're going to hunt on that property. But when it's a property that you're going to build on, you want to make sure that there's no flood zone in the area or that it's minimal. And you can actually do this by checking the FEMA floodplain map. Number 6, you want to review the deed restrictions, because you don't want to buy a property where you can't have your RV on there. You can't have your mobile home on there. You can't do certain things. You can't have livestock on the property. Deed restrictions are really important, and these are things that can be really sneaky on you. So you want to make sure that you review deed restrictions. I've seen a lot of people lose money on deals because they didn't review deed restrictions. So you want to make sure you check the restrictive covenants at your local registrar's office. Number 7, will the property actually perk? If water won't drain through the property, then it won't perk. And so you can either get a sand mound system, or let's say if it's a hunting property, then a perk test doesn't really matter. But if you're building on a property, you want to make sure that before you buy that property, it either has a perk test or you get the perk test yourself. Don't guess. Don't just assume that just because there's other properties built on neighboring properties that it will perk. Get that perk test, because if you buy it and you figure out that it's not buildable, you're going to be upset. And some land is just really cheap because it's just unbuildable. Why? Because it won't perk. Number 8, you want to see if there's water. Does it have city water, or is there a well? If you don't have these two things, you want to make sure that you do have them, or that the city can bring water to your property, or you can drill a well and the property has capacity for that. If you don't have this, you could be in trouble. And a well could cost you anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 depending on where you are. There are also some areas that don't have groundwater. So if you want to build a well, make sure that you also have groundwater. Number 9, you want to make sure that you talk to some neighbors. Now, I've bought and sold land in 48 different states across my career. And I bought and sold millions of dollars worth of parcels of land. And this is something that I always do. I always have my local land specific brokers go to these properties, talk to the neighbors, and make sure that they actually have connections with these owners. Because I had a specific case a few years ago where I was about to buy about 20 acres in Georgia, and there were bodies buried on the property. And the neighbor actually told us there were bodies buried on the property. And I was like, what? No way. So we went to the registrar's office and we found out that there was hazardous waste on the property. The seller had actually been reported for having hazardous waste on his property, so I didn't close on the property. I mean, good God, that saved me so much money. You also never know. I even send neighbor letters every time I actually buy a property, because the owners of the other properties could also be looking to sell that property as well. So you just never know. You want to make sure that you make good connections with your local neighbors. Number 10, you want to make sure that you get a title commitment on your property. You need to check if there's any back taxes, conservation easements, or anything particularly wrong with the property. And the title commitment will tell you everything. Don't self-close on any of your properties. Get title commitments. On every property that I've ever bought and sold, I've gotten a title commitment on that property just to make sure that I'm insured. And I'll actually tell you, there was one deal in particular, out of hundreds of deals, there was one deal that was just bad. And I was able to get my insurance back and actually get whole for that deal. And I just broke even because I had title insurance on that deal. The title company made an oversight. I filed my insurance and I got the money back. So you want to make sure that you get title commitments on every single one of your properties and that you get these properties insured. You also want to make sure that you have full right and claim to the property, and that the seller actually has full right and claim to sell the property to you. Because I've seen cases, not in my case, but I've seen cases with colleagues where they've actually bought a property and the seller didn't authorize that. And there was undivided interest on the property and they didn't do their full due diligence and research, and so they ended up getting sued. Who wants to deal with that? Now, a bonus tip. You want to check for slopes on your property. Now, a lot of these maps and a lot of these realtors and a lot of these sellers won't tell you about the slope. But as you can see with this one, I wasn't told about the slope. So you want to check and make sure that your properties are not extremely sloped and don't have large grades of slope, because you can't really do anything with the landslide. So there you have it. That's 10 things that every land buyer should know before buying that property. If you missed anything, rewind and watch again, and make sure to leave one thing from your notes that you learned from this video. And if you want to learn how I buy and sell land for profit, make sure to check out this video about how I made $73,000 on just one land deal.